Morant with a running start. Elevates. Oh, it dunks. Oh, my goodness.
Tie game in overtime. Gasol will turn his heat. It's gone. Memphis on top. 7-10 remaining. Conley now with three. Count it. A 15-point lead for Memphis. And Blake Griffin gets into it on the floor with Randolph. Hard to tell if there are any punches being thrown under there, but Griffin took acceptance.
Adams going long. Morant. He hit it. John Morant. Insanity.
You gotta be kidding me.
Welcome to Grits and Grinds, a Memphis Grizzlies podcast. My name is Keith Parrish. The Grizzlies began the 2023-2024 NBA season at home against the Pelicans, and they lost 111-104. The Grizzlies were shorthanded in the front court. They shot terribly from the three-point line. They got out-rebounded, and after a okay first quarter, they had an abysmal second quarter and never totally recovered and trailed the entire second half. And the Pelicans leave Memphis with a 1-0 record, and the Grizzlies drop a game at home after losing just 5 at home all of last season. In this episode, of course, I'm going to break down the entire game, look at the performances of those players who played. Before we get there, though, just to let you know that Underdog Fantasy is running a new user special for the NBA season. I participated in a fantasy draft with some of my listeners on Wednesday night. You can play daily fantasy against your friends on Underdog Fantasy. For me, that's one of the main benefits. If you want to try it out, use the promo code FBBF or click the link in this episode's description, and Underdog Fantasy will match your opening deposit up to $500. And with the new NBA season, they will also give you a free higher or lower pick if you are in one of the states where that is legal. So try out Underdog Fantasy. It's a new way to play fantasy sports for cash. And again, you can play just against your friends or play against me. If you want to try it out, use that promo code FBBF or click the link in this episode's description. All right. The Grizzlies, before the game, found out that not only would Steven Adams be out, like he will be the entire season, they found out there's no Santi Aldama, or we found out basically right before the game, the day before the game, that Santi Aldama was not going to play either because he twisted his ankle at practice. And so now the perilously thin Grizzlies front court got even thinner. So how would the Grizzlies react? How would they change up their rotation? Well, they went a little bit small ball, and because of that, I think they were at a disadvantage the whole game. This team, even when Santi Aldama is playing, we know the weakness is going to be rebounding. And when you combine that with missing 31 three-pointers, thus you end up losing a fairly close game. Now, we're not going to overreact after a one-game sample size, but it also was not a fluke in any way. This was not like an aberration. These are the problems we know about. These are the expected issues for this team. What does their half-court offense look like? Not very good. How's their three-point shooting going to be? Not very good, outside of Desmond Bane. What's the rebounding going to look like? Bad. So I think it's fair to be concerned. We're not sounding the alarm or anything. There were a lot of good processes in this game. That's something that Taylor Jenkins and Desmond Bane both said in their post-game press conferences. Just like, it's game 1 out of 82. We don't care. We care about building winning habits. And I do feel like there's a lot of good things to take away from the game. Most notably, of course, Desmond Bane. Desmond Bane is awesome. Desmond Bane had 31 points and 5 rebounds and 5 assists. Got 2 steals and a block. He brought it from the opening tip and then from start to finish. Just an excellent game from Desmond Bane. The problem was basically everybody else. And the problem was what happened when Desmond Bane went out of the game. The Grizzlies won the minutes Desmond Bane played by 6. Desmond Bane made 5 out of his 10 three-pointers. This is the 5th 30-point, 5 rebound, 5 assist game of Desmond Bane's career. He is 1 behind Mike Conley for the fourth most 35-5 games in franchise history. Ja Morant, of course, has the most. He has 32 games with at least 30 points, 5 rebounds, and 5 assists in the regular season. Then Sharif Abdul-Rahim has 9. Pau Gasol has 8. Conley has 6. And now Desmond Bane has 5. This game started off fine. Basically, the Grizzlies starters, I think, played fine. The starting lineup, which is what we expected after the preseason, Zaire Williams did indeed start at the 3, and Xavier Tillman, Jaren Jackson Jr. were in the front court, and Desmond Bane and Marcus Smart were in the backcourt. Those 5 guys played well together. The Grizzlies won their minutes. I think they played 14 total minutes together in the game. They outscored the Pelicans by 8 in those minutes. At the end of the first quarter, the Grizzlies were ahead, but then, of course, it all fell apart in the second quarter as they failed to score. There was a 6-minute stretch in the second quarter where the Grizzlies were outscored 27-4. Now, that's an eye-popping number. Getting outscored by 23 points in a 6-minute span, absolutely preposterously bad. But also scoring 4 points in a 6-minute span, also perhaps equally as bad. So they really struggled when the Pelicans went to zone. Zone remains a proven Grizz killer. They really struggled anytime the Pelicans even did that little light full court pressure. I think Brevin Knight on the broadcast called it token pressure, which a lot of NBA teams are doing now to kind of slow down the game, to force you to burn up a little bit of the shot clock before you get into your half court set. And I think when teams play the Grizzlies, it's not going to be token pressure. I think it's going to be a good defensive choice to knock the Grizzlies out of their rhythm. The Grizzlies do not have many ball handlers. And so I think whatever we call token pressure is going to really disrupt the Grizzlies just getting the ball across the half court. Now, they didn't have that many turnovers. They did take care of the basketball. They actually did a really great job of forcing turnovers. The Pelicans had 21 turnovers. The Grizzlies actually got some second chance scoring, but the last 3 quarters is where they got destroyed by the Pelicans at the second chance scoring. In the first quarter, the Grizzlies won second chance scoring 10-0. But then the Pelicans got 25 second chance points after the first quarter. But going back to that pressure thing and the ball handling thing, I just think when you look at this Grizzlies roster because of the Ja Morant suspension and you look at the players available, there's not a lot of communal team ball handling. Like if it was like a video game where they give you like the ratings for the skills of a team. I've been playing a lot of old FIFA. And FIFA would be like, all right, this team is a 68 in attacking, 76 midfield, 78 defense. Like, if there was a number ranking for the team ball handling, it would be quite low, I think. If there was a total number for team rebounding, it would be quite low. Like, that's something everyone talked about after the game. Taylor Jenkins saying, yeah, we have to rebound better. We know that. Desmond Bane said at the beginning of training camp, they basically had a team meeting to talk about rebounding, that they need to rebound. And I'm more of a skeptic that, like, you can't talk about rebounding. You can't even really scheme to rebound better. Either guys are good at rebounding or they're not. And unfortunately, the Grizzlies players, not very good at rebounding. Of course, that was exacerbated by no Santi Aldama, and thus you're playing lots and lots of small ball. You're playing David Roddy served as the backup power forward. Jake LaRavia also played some power forward. But as Taylor Jenkins spelled out, even when Jaren and Xavier were on the court, along with Zaire, when they were not small ball, they also did a poor job of rebounding. And so these are going to be issues I fear all season. And like going to the shooting, 43 three-point attempts, only made 12. You could say it's bad shooting luck. I don't know if that's true. I think that might be what I say. It's not bad shooting luck. It's bad shooters shooting. Desmond Bane made 5 out of 10. He, of course, is an elite three-point shooter. So everybody else made 7 out of 33. That's not an aberration to me when you see who took the three-pointers. Like Xavier Tillman took 5 three-pointers, and I've been on that. I support that strongly. Xavier Tillman tied his career high with 5 3-point attempts. He only made 1. Xavier Tillman needs to shoot 3-pointers. Good job. But Xavier Tillman and Jaren Jackson Jr. and David Roddy and Jake LaRavia and Derrick Rose and Luke Kennard and who else? Like all those guys combining to go 7 for 33. That's not outlier bad. That's typical bad. That's a result that will happen many times when the same players take the same shots that they took. The only exception would be Luke Kennard. Luke Kennard was 0 for 5. Left the game after getting hit in the head. Hopefully he's okay for the game on Friday. Like Luke Kennard, 0 for 5, that's an aberration. Also, by the way, if Luke Kennard makes 2 out of 5 3-pointers and not 0 out of 5, guess what? Maybe this is a one-possession game, and we feel totally different. So, like, we're down after the loss. We're going to highlight the shooting numbers. But also, if some shots go in, just a couple more shots go in, the Grizzlies easily could have won. They easily could have been in it up to the final possession. By the way, Luke Kennard missing all 5 of his 3-point attempts lowered his career 3-point percentage on the Grizzlies by 2 full percentage points. He was a 54% career 3-point shooter on the Grizzlies based off of last year, down to a less impressive, although still very, very impressive, 52%. Also, I do want to highlight that 43 attempts is a lot. Last year, that would have been tied for the 7th most 3-point attempts that the Grizzlies took in any game. In the preseason, the Grizzlies were shooting this many 3-pointers. 45 3-pointers per game was not abnormal. They had that one game against the Hawks. Yes, most of the main guys didn't play where they shot over 50. This new offense with Patrick St. Andrews coming in to install it seems to be way more 3-point heavy. Of course, without John Morant, you're not going to get as many points in the paint. But a 3-point heavy offense when you are probably not a very good 3-point shooting team might not be the best formula. I think eventually it's going to work out. Eventually they hope these guys are going to make 3-pointers. But I think that will be a constant problem for the Grizzlies. Like going through the 3-point shooting. Jaren 0 for 5. Jaren had a disappointing game. Yes, Jaren blocked 5 shots. He blocked Zion Williamson several times. He also got posterized by Zion one very special time. Jaren was scoreless in the first half. Missed all 5 of his 3-point attempts. Only took 4 2-point attempts. Finished with 8 points. But like Jaren going 0 for 5 from 3, we've seen that. Zaire made a 1 out of 3. That's his average. Marcus Smart making his Grizzlies debut. I'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. He was 2 out of 6. Those are his career averages. He's a 33% 3-point shooter. Like Derrick Rose made 2 out of 4. That's good. My worry for the Grizzlies is that the shooting numbers are not an aberration. Same with the rebounding numbers. Like these are known problems. If something else pops up, you're like, oh, the Grizzlies turned the ball over 20 times. That's weird. That's not what they normally do. Or, hey, the Grizzlies missed a ton of free throws, although they did do that a lot last year. The Grizzlies missed a ton of free throws. You're like, well, that's weird. All right, that's an aberration. That's a fluke. That's a bad game. For me, getting out-rebounded and outshot from 3, those are the known problems. So when they happen, I'm like, well, that makes me maybe a little bit more concerned if it was something kind of strange or outside of the ordinary. Now, Jaren's game, again, 8 points, 5 blocks, 5 rebounds, 3 assists was good. The Pelicans were double-teaming him a lot. He was moving the ball. I mean, 3 assists is kind of a high number for Jaren. Unfortunately, Jaren also struggled with foul trouble. Again, he was in foul trouble. He did get his 4th foul overturned, which turned into his 5th block with that spectacular block of Zion Williamson where Taylor Jenkins challenged it, got the foul overturned. Good job, coach. By the way, I didn't mention this in the last episode. In the preseason, Taylor Jenkins had gotten his first 5 challenges right before finally missing one. He challenged in the last preseason game that foul call where Jaren was called for a foul where Damian Lillard jumped into him. That challenge he lost, but then he won this challenge. So now, counting the preseason, Taylor Jenkins 6 out of 7 on coach's challenges. That's a very good return on your challenge investment. Good job, coach. But Jaren, down offensive game, and the Grizzlies are probably going to struggle when Jaren has down offensive games. Marcus Smart did deliver 17 points. He made 6 out of 11 field goal attempts, 2 out of 6 from 3. Like I said, I would say overall decent to solid game from Marcus Smart. I did feel like some of the scoring kind of covered up what wasn't maybe a totally great game. Like he had 5 turnovers and only 3 assists, plus he missed 3 free throws. So some good, strong moments for Marcus Smart in his debut, but obviously things that could get better. Xavier Tillman, also, I think his stat line lies a little bit. I'm not going to say he was bad. I thought he was, far from it. Xavier Tillman was pretty good. His stat line is outstanding. And I would not give him like a A+, that was amazing game. I mean, if you're playing fantasy basketball, yes, A+, that was amazing, Xavier Tillman. He finishes with 17 points, 12 rebounds, 4 assists, 3 steals, and a block. I mean, those are elite numbers. He's just the 5th player in franchise history to have a game hitting all those marks, to have a game with at least 17 points, 12 rebounds, 4 assists, 3 steals, and a block. A couple of them, you could easily guess probably who've done it before. Pau Gasol and Sharif Abdul-Rahim. The other 2 are harder. Jeff Green and, actually you could guess forever. You would never get it. Bobby Jones had a game where he hit all those numbers in 2008. I will be honest, I've forgotten who Bobby Jones is. I looked it up. He played 9 games as a Memphis Grizzly in 2008. But Tillman made the most of his opportunity. He had to play 34 minutes because of the shorthanded nature of the front court. He left some points on the board, like he missed some easy shots, I felt like. But I guess overall, you can't ask for that much more from Xavier Tillman, stepping up and delivering like that. One of the positives I will take away when we think about things we're looking for as far as correct processes and just looking right, doing the right thing as opposed to getting the result we want, I think we can also be encouraged as Grizzlies fans that Zaire Williams looked good once again. He only had 9 points, but 9 points, 4 rebounds. He looked comfortable out there. He would have had assists if Xavier Tillman made some shots. I thought Zaire Williams showed the same form that he showed in the preseason, and I found that particularly encouraging. But then I guess you get to the bench and kind of a mess. I mean, I know that we're shorthanded, but you look at the Pelicans. The Pelicans bench was Dyson Daniels, Kyra Lewis, Jordan Hawkins, Larry Nance Jr., and Matt Ryan. Okay? That bench is terrible. At least to me, that is a pretty poor collection of players. Larry Nance is a nice reserve NBA player. Dyson Daniels, Kyra Lewis, Jordan Hawkins, all totally unproven. Matt Ryan is a two-way guy the Pelicans signed in the last few days. The Grizzlies couldn't handle those guys. Our bench could not handle their bench. Like the Pelicans, they're shorthanded as well. They're missing Trey Murphy III. They're missing Jose Alvarado. Like, the Pelicans bench outplayed our bench. And I think you got to be honest with yourself if you're a Grizzlies fan. I know it's just one game, but like Derrick Rose, David Roddy, Jake LaRavia, if you can't handle Matt Ryan and Kyra Lewis and Jordan Hawkins, we got problems. I mean, I thought Roddy was fine. Derrick Rose, I guess that's a big storyline. All right, so Derrick Rose makes his Memphis debut, gets a huge ovation when he comes in. On his first play, he makes a nice jump pass to Roddy in the corner for a 3. But after that, it was rocky. He missed 6 out of 7 two-pointers. He scored 8 points on 11 shots in 16 minutes. The Grizzlies had an 87 offensive rating when he was on the court. It's not all Derrick Rose's fault. Guys weren't making shots. But like Jake LaRavia comes in, doesn't do a whole lot. Not making shots. Luke Kennard, we expect way more. Again, we can excuse Luke Kennard even though he continued his preseason struggles. I mean, he wasn't hitting threes in the preseason, and now he extended that into the regular season by missing all 5 of his threes. But the bench was awful. And the depth on this team is a problem. And I know, like, our bench is supposed to be Zaire Williams and Santi Aldama and Luke Kennard. But Santi Aldama was unavailable. Zaire Williams has been promoted into the starting lineup because Ja Morant's suspended. And now, of course, you've lost Steven Adams. So, like, we are hurting with our top-line talent not being available. But that just, again, highlights that our depth was not a strength, and now it's being put to the test. And it's going to be a problem, I think, for this team as they fight to make the playoffs. I mean, I'm not giving up on like my thought they would win 45 games. I think they might, probably going to win 45 games, somewhere around there. But the problems that we identified were, I think, magnified in this one. And like, when you watch other NBA teams, like on Wednesday night, I probably watched part of 8 or 9 games. And frankly, I was concerned about the Grizzlies' talent level compared to other teams. I'm watching other teams. I'm watching teams that aren't supposed to be any good, and they're bringing in guys off their bench where I'm like, hey, that guy's pretty good. I'm watching the Trailblazers, and I'm like, hey, they got some solid guys on their bench. Like if you watch the Spurs Mavericks game, maybe the Spurs end up being competitive, but like you watch the Spurs game, you're like, hey, they got some guys. Like the investment in Roddy and LaRavia and then Derrick Rose needing him to perform, and that's all they went with. They only played 9 guys. So those were the 4 guys plus Kennard. That's the 4 guys off the bench. They played a 9-man rotation. They did not play Kenneth Lofton Jr. Fire up your alarm bells for that one. No Santi Aldama, Steven Adams, and Brandon Clark out for the year. Still no Kenneth Lofton Jr. I mean, Kenneth Lofton Jr.'s dad on Twitter replied to DeMichael Cole and was like, man, if Taylor Jenkins isn't going to play him, you got to trade him. Taylor Jenkins was asked about it, was asked why didn't they play Lofton. He said, he wanted to spread it out, and they're going to have this revolving opportunity for guys to get in, and Lofton's chance will come. He would imagine he would get in the game. But, I mean, that's a loud DNP. When you're one of the only front court players available and you don't play when you're desperately in need of front court players, that's a loud DNP for Kenneth Lofton Jr. By the way, last couple episodes I've been talking about, trading for some front court help. And I think Kenneth Lofton Jr. you have to identify as his roster spot is far from secure. But a couple of the guys who I thought we could get who would fit in the Dillon Brooks traded player exception. They also played on Wednesday night. And just to let you know, Mike Muscala was the 10th man for the Wizards. He played about 8 minutes. Maybe he's very, very gettable. Jalen Smith, he actually had a great game for the Pacers. He scored 13 points and had 8 rebounds in 13 minutes and made 2 3-pointers. So maybe Jalen Smith not as easily acquirable as I thought. Also, John Conchar did not play. So that, again, to me, goes to roster building. I know there seems to be something else going on with Conchar. He's been unavailable the last few preseason games. Taylor Jenkins said, it was a coach's decision, but they're still ramping him up to get back to play, so maybe he's not totally in game shape. But, you chose John Conchar to be on your bench over some other guys who are proven good NBA players. You drafted Roddy and LaRavia to help out a team that was a title contender, you hoped. You signed Derrick Rose, allegedly not to babysit. Allegedly, you signed Derrick Rose because he would help you on the basketball court. And the bench is weak. And I have big concerns about that going forward. But now I am perhaps doing what they call beating a dead horse. So let's take a quick break, and then we'll come back and wrap up with my thoughts from this first game. If you are shopping for tickets on the secondary market, if you want to go to an NBA game for less than face value, if you want to go to an NFL game, if you want to go to an MLS playoff game, if you're trying to get into anything that has tickets, well, check out SeatGeek.com. They have all the games and all the events at the best prices. They have an easy color-coded map to let you know what the best deals are. And if you use promo code FASTBREAK, they will give you $20 off your first purchase. So if you've never tried SeatGeek, get a free $20 on me. Use that promo code FASTBREAK. Try out SeatGeek and get yourself a deal on any live sport, concert, or theater event. All right, just a few more notes from this game to wrap up the episode. The Grizzlies, thought this was kind of interesting. They didn't draw a charge in this game. And by the way, they didn't draw a charge in the preseason. So, despite acquiring Marcus Smart, one of the NBA's charge leaders and a guy who is hopefully going to transform the team's ability to take a charge, the Grizzlies still yet to draw a charge with Marcus Smart on the roster. Marcus Smart's first bucket as a Grizzly, I thought was a really cool play because it was off a second chance opportunity created by Xavier Williams. I made a note of that because those are the kind of plays that we haven't seen a ton of from Xavier Williams. We've seen him make mid-range jumpers. We've seen him catch alley-oops. We've seen him make three-pointers, but it's those hustle plays, those rebounding plays, offensive rebounding plays that we've really been desperately wanting to see. And again, I was encouraged by what I saw of Xavier in this game. I do worry sometimes we set the bar so low for our guys that it doesn't take much to impress us, but I thought Xavier was pretty solid in his game. Kind of a little funny thing, the Grizzlies game was not shown in Nashville on Xfinity. So if you had Xfinity cable, you were probably hyped for months and months and months to watch the Grizzlies make their season debut. It's opening night. Let's watch the Grizzlies. Oh, whoops. It's not being televised. They were showing the Hawks game. They finally figured it out and switched it over for the Grizzlies game in the second half. Just the fun things you deal with when you live in a team's not primary market, but are in their blackout zone, and the television listings get weird. A little bit more about the rotation. So I already said that they played 9 guys. They used Roddy in like the Santi Aldama role. So a lot of the rotation was as expected or as I anticipated, where Roddy and Kennard were the first subs in the game. That's, again, Roddy taking Aldama's normal spot as one of the first subs in the game. They came in for Zaire and Jaren. So then Jaren did do the thing where he basically would come back into the first quarter and try to anchor the second units. And Bane was the guy playing basically a long first stint and then playing a long second stint in the first half. We did see a few minutes without Bane or Jaren on the court. Again, I highlighted that as something that I hoped would not happen because, I guess, of the lack of depth. You ended up with a kind of a small ball, Derrick Rose, Luke Kennard, LaRavia, Roddy, and Tillman lineup. That kind of made me nervous. But then they did, in fact, kind of sprinkle the guys all back in through the game. The lack of shooting from Kennard, I mean, honestly, like that brought down whatever lineup data you might pull from one game. Like Kennard missed all his shots, and they were good shots, like they were good looks. And so again, because like if Kennard makes 2 out of 5, as opposed to 0 out of 5, we have a totally different episode, and maybe everything looks a little bit better. As far as Kennard playing alongside Marcus Smart and Desmond Bane, something we wanted to see. We saw a little bit of that. As far as like I think the closing lineup that we were anticipating, which was Luke Kennard in for Zaire Williams. So it would be Kennard and Bane and Smart, Jaren and Tillman. We did see them close the first half with that. And again, that's what I anticipated or what I guessed would happen. I think we would have saw it again in the fourth quarter if Luke Kennard hadn't left with that head injury. By the way, Taylor Jenkins said after the game he was still being assessed. So I don't know if it was a possible concussion situation with him getting hit in the head. I mentioned how zone defense is the Grizz killer. Well, that probably is true, but also the real Grizz killer, it's just CJ McCollum. CJ McCollum once again torched the Grizzlies. He made 6 out of 11 three-pointers. He scored 24 points for his career. CJ McCollum averages more points against the Grizzlies than he does any other team. Jonas Valanciunas, our old buddy, he had a pretty good game. He had 12 points and 12 rebounds, which, oh, by the way, is by far the best game he's had against the Grizzlies in a long time, because normally he has to play Steven Adams, and Steven Adams destroys him. In Jonas's last 6 games against Steven, Jonas only averages 3.9 rebounds per game. Stat I love saying. Of course, no Steven Adams, so Jonas had a decent game with the double-double, 12 points, 12 rebounds. Brandon Ingram and Zion Williamson also gave the Grizzlies problems somewhat predictably. Brandon Ingram had 19.7 rebounds and 6 assists. Zion, he finished with 23. I didn't think he looked very good. I thought if I'm a Pelicans fan, I'd be a little bit concerned. Of course, he warmed up as the game went on. He had 16 points in the second half, so maybe he's just like getting back into shape. But he was not as explosive as we're accustomed to, despite the fact that he had multiple highlight dunks, including that poster over Jaren and a couple of incredible alley-oop finishes. But when you talk about like the Zion Williamson scale of amazing, it was not as amazing as he's been in previous years. Going forward, the Grizzlies, as you know, I think play the Nuggets on Friday night. By the way, if you're in the Nashville area, come hang out with me and other Grizzlies fans at Noble's Beer Hall at 6 p.m. It's an early game. The Grizzlies take on the reigning world champions, the Denver Nuggets. I will be there giving away Grizzlies prizes. If you want some free stuff, if you want to watch the Grizzlies with other Grizzlies fans, come out to Noble's Beer Hall this Friday, October 27th at 6 p.m. But it's a tough game for the Grizzlies. Very, very possibly they could drop to 0-2. I mean, they're going to be favored to lose. I don't know how severe Santi Aldama's ankle injury is, but, I mean, a sprained ankle can be weeks. So even if Aldama plays, they're going to be an underdog to the Nuggets. So that's going to be a tough ask. And then the game after that, they play again on Saturday, second night of a back-to-back. They have to go on the road to our old buddy Tyus Jones and take on the Wizards. So I said last episode, opening night, it's a toss-up game. When we found out Santi Aldama was unavailable, it became like, all right, I don't feel good about it. I mean, the Grizzlies were still favored by 1, I think because of their strong home court record from last year. So I guess it was still a toss-up game, but they lost, the coin flip game to the Pelicans. Now you play the champs. Then you have to play the Wizards on the road, and you come back home, play the Mavericks on Monday. It's a little tough stretch. They're going to need shots to fall. That's the most simple of all analysis, and it feels like the most apt analysis. When the Grizzlies make 35% of their three-pointers, they might win. When they don't, they're probably not going to. As far as the rebounding, I don't know if anything can be done. I mean, Konchar's a good rebounder, maybe if he played some of the guard or forward minutes, but I'm not convinced he'd do that much better than the lineups they played out. It kind of is what it is. We need to have big games basically from Jaren and from the shooters, I think, to pull out these wins until Ja Morant returns. 1 game down, 24 to go, hopefully, before Ja Morant can return and pick up the slack. But anyways, thanks for listening. If you want to support this program directly, do that at patreon.com/fastbreakbreakfast. Join me over there. You get access to exclusive bonus content, some bonus episodes, and then you can join the Slack channel, hang out with a great community of listeners, and talk with me about the Grizzlies whenever you want. So if you want to directly support the creation of these episodes, patreon.com/fastbreakbreakfast. And of course, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Anyways, hope you guys have a great Thursday. Talk to you soon. See some of you on Friday at Noble's Beer Hall. Go Grizz.